you kind of get a feel already whether the person is going to be a good participant or not in their journey with you. Whether it was because just us personality-wise didn't jive, or whether he just wasn't ready to take on osteopathy as a quote-unquote project of his in his wellness journey, you can tell pretty quick when it's not going to be a good fit.
Are you ready to transform your health journey? Welcome to the Holistic Podcast, where science meets holistic wellness to help you take control of your health. I'm Lianne Balazsi, an osteopath with a background in psychology, athletic therapy, and occupational therapy, here to guide you through practical ways to feel your best without relying solely on doctor visits or prescriptions. Join me each week for deep dives, expert insights, and real-life wellness experiments as we explore the powerful connection between body and mind. Whether you're new to holistic health or just looking for fresh perspectives, you're in the right place. Let's start unlocking your healthiest, happiest self together. This is the Holistic Podcast. Before we dive in, a quick reminder. I'm an osteopath, not a medical doctor, and this podcast is for informational purposes only. The content shared here is based on my personal experience in education in health and holistic wellness. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have about your own particular situation and your health. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's get on with the show.
So I often get asked a lot of random questions about what I do for work in the osteopathy field. And funny enough, it's not necessarily about what it is an osteopath does specifically. It's more questions around little anxieties about what to expect once you're visiting the osteopath. Because when it's all new and you don't know what to expect, it can be nerve-wracking for some people. So I thought I'd address today what it is you can prepare for once you go to the osteopath's office. So let me help bring a little clarity to the situation so that when you show up, you feel a bit more at ease. After you make the first appointment, whether that be through phone call, online and scheduling, sometimes you'll show up to someone's home-based clinic. So sometimes it can happen that you can actually walk in and it's a back door through their garage that leads into their basement. And it can honestly look a little sketchy at first, but then once you enter and you break that barrier, you actually see how it's actually very warm and welcoming and very professional looking. That being said, if you end up in a dirty little basement somewhere, please get out. You definitely don't want to be somewhere you don't feel comfortable. But usually when an osteopath is doing it out of their own home, they usually put in a lot of effort into making it look very welcoming and as clear-cut as possible so that you navigate the space easily. Because that being said, sometimes when it's in someone's home, they're not necessarily going to have a secretary there waiting to greet you. What they may have is a few signs up on the wall, on the door, just telling you, welcome, come in. You may have to fill out a little admission form. Everyone's going to have their own little way of doing it. But if you're not going to, say, a traditional clinic, like where I work, you may end up at someone's home and they're going to have their system. And if ever you feel uncomfortable about that, you can always reach out to the osteopath in question, and I'm sure they will clarify the process. I'm sure they're just happy to have you come, and they will definitely put the effort in to make you feel welcome. Once you arrive, if there's no secretary, usually they just ask that you sit and you wait, and then they'll receive you. That's pretty straightforward, but some people feel like when there's no one else there and they're sitting in an empty room and they don't hear much going on, they're afraid they're actually stepping into the wrong house and they leave. I've seen it happen before back in the day when I worked out of an office without a secretary. So I just thought I'd clear that one up. Once you arrive to the clinic and you have your first appointment, the osteopath will obviously come, welcome you in, and you're definitely going to have a chat for anywhere from 10 minutes to sometimes half the appointment time. It could be 30 minutes that you are really just going to sit, establish a rapport, and get to know each other a little better. And all this is really important for your first appointment because it gives a whole context and lays the foundation for where your whole journey with an osteopath is going to go. It's also a good way for you to get a feel if this osteopath is a good fit for you. You want to make sure, just like in any kind of therapeutic session, like some people, if they go see a psychologist, they'll actually go through 5 or 6 or more before they actually find the right one for them. It can be the same when you go see a different physiotherapist. Sometimes some are known for specific ailments, but if it doesn't jive between the two of you, it's not worth going through with the therapy sessions with that person. So it's the same with osteopathy. If you go to your first appointment with an osteopath, you're sitting through the first half hour doing your medical history with them, and you get through that first session and you don't feel like there's a good connection between you two. Speaking personally as the osteopath, I have no problem with someone deciding, you know what, not sure that person's the right fit for me, and I may go see someone else. That is completely fair, and everyone should feel 100% comfortable doing that. It's happened to me before where I meet someone for the first time, and they weren't necessarily referred to me by anyone, so he was just trying it on a whim. His wife told him he should go see an osteo. He didn't really know what an osteopath does. And that's perfectly fine, it's great. I received him in, I explained what I do. And as we're talking, you kind of get a feel already whether the person is going to be a good participant or not in their journey with you. Whether it was because just us personality-wise didn't jive, or whether he just wasn't ready to take on osteopathy as quote-unquote project of his in his wellness journey, you can tell pretty quick when it's not going to be a good fit. And I always try to be very transparent by saying, look, feel free to try someone else, or you know what, my colleague may be a good fit. I'm more than happy to refer, because you want the person to really feel comfortable. So if it's going to be awkward or uncomfortable, or, sometimes your personalities don't fit well, an osteopath's pretty sensitive to these things. We can feel once we start touching the body that you're actually in resistance and you're actually not going to be very receptive to the treatment. I've actually recently had to tell a client, unfortunately, who had come to see me, but she actually did not look like she legitimately wanted to be there. And I actually stopped in the middle of the interview and told her, look, I don't think today's the right day. You don't look like you're ready to receive this. And honestly, for me, just for energy expenditure of what it will take in order to induce any kind of change in you is going to take more energy on my part than I should have to give. And I actually invited them to reschedule or book with someone else. When you're coming in for your first appointment, we want you to feel at ease. We want you to want to take part in this adventure with us. So that being said, I figured we should do a little do's and don'ts of when you go to consult the osteopath. So are you ready? Here are some of the do's. Number 1, do bring your medical reports. If you have done x-rays or MRIs, or you've consulted with a physiotherapist and there are information you feel that we should know, especially when it comes down to herniated discs or a history of a fracture or even a current fracture, any kind of medical report, especially in the past year or so, that you feel we should know, please bring a copy of them. Ask your doctor for a copy, or if you get them sent to you by email, you can always forward that by email to usually your osteopath or the clinic, and they will add that to your file. At our clinic, personally, a lot of people still like to bring a paper format, and then we have the secretary scan and we add it to their digital documents and return the original to them. One thing that can also be interesting, but not necessary, because I'd like to emphasize we are not medical doctors, but if you have recent blood work, it could be interesting to add that to the file. Not because we're going to do a big miracle and change your blood work, but it just gives us a good terrain of understanding how your physiology is working in your body. And then from us working more with the anatomy, if we can see if we can help the structures around that area and help optimize at least the anatomical structure of it. So like I was saying in previous episodes, structure governs function. That's one of our main principles in osteopathy. So I'm not saying, for example, if you have a thyroid issue and your blood levels are showing that your TSH levels are not optimal, I'm not saying I'm going to go touch the thyroid and all of a sudden all your thyroid issues will be gone. But it does give us a good indication that there may be something implicated in the fascia in that area of where your thyroid lies in your neck, or that we have maybe some cervical vertebrae that need to be addressed that could be affecting the optimal function of your thyroid. So it just gives us a better picture of everything that's going on, which could be relating to your pain. So definitely, if you're comfortable sharing these reports with us, it does give us lots of good information to work with. Another thing you should do is bring loose or comfortable clothing. Like, I personally prefer, ladies, I prefer you wear some thin leggings and a tank top. And guys, if you bring shorts and a t-shirt, usually that works too. Some osteopaths, sounds a little weird, but they'll ask you to be in your underwear. I personally don't think it's necessary. When we were students, we preferred that because we could really see every single vertebrae perfectly. We could see exactly how your alignment is. But over time you gain experience, you can feel through the clothes. It's like a thin little layer for us. And over time, even through the clothing, you see the trends of how your body lies. So if you're not comfortable being in underwear, that's perfectly fine. Ideally, something that's cotton, not too thick, and definitely stretchy is the winner for us. Another thing to think of is to get ready to tell us more than you think you would need to tell us about your medical history. Why I say this, because often I'll ask people about, especially in the first appointment, I will ask them about any bad injuries they've had, car accidents, surgeries, anything that's really, let's just say, of a more traumatic nature. Not that I'm saying surgery is traumatic, but it's still a pretty intense procedure. So why I ask these questions, and usually people get all thrown off and go, well, that was such a long time ago. Yes, but one thing I need to have you all understand is once that incident or surgery happens to you, your body starts to adapt around that and try to avoid feeling those tensions associated with that incident. So, for example, I've mentioned before about women who may have had a C-section. That scar, even though it could have been 20, 30 years ago, your fascia has been being pulled down to that scar for 20, 30 years. And over time, your neck starts to hurt more and more and more because this whole pull coming from your head all the way down to your uterus keeps pulling more and more as you go on with life. And then if you have any other incidents happen to you, say, fine, you have a C-section around the age of 22, but then at 30, you get into a car accident and you get a bad whiplash. Then you go hiking at 35 and you have a bad fall. If none of these different incidents get addressed, your body just adapts around them and they have less and less room to have any wiggle room to give you more mobility. I hope I'm clear with this message that you may think it's so long ago and you're past it, and it may be that mentally, even if it was a big, intense event in your life, that you feel like you've moved on from it, but never addressed it physically, your body is still carrying that pattern or that injury or that tension from the scar. So all this to say, don't be surprised. We get really down to the nitty and gritty with your history. Another point that could be good, I'm sorry I have to say this, but sometimes people may have a very busy day. It could be a very stressful day. It could be they decide to go work out before their appointment, shower before you come. It sounds silly that I have to say this, but the osteopath will really appreciate it because we do get pretty close sometimes when we're actually doing our manipulations. So it just makes it more pleasant for everybody. It does happen. Sometimes there are special circumstances, so don't feel bad. There are times, for example, I had a client the other day, so he had a small surgery, but he wasn't allowed to get wet for a good 48 to 36 hours. And in that window of when he had that mole removed, he also had an appointment with me. It's not the end of the world. I'm just saying, if say you're a hockey player or a football player and you're playing with your smelly equipment and then you're coming straight from practice after without showering, please take those extra few minutes. It really does make a difference. All right, a few don'ts. I've mentioned how it is ideal to wear clothing, but then again, there are some exceptions, but there are times, or other colleagues of mine, who actually may only evaluate people in their underwear. Don't wear the skimpy underwear, or, if it's laundry day and you got the old grandma underwear and you're super embarrassed, don't let the stress of what kind of underwear you have on prevent you from getting the proper evaluation that you need. So if it's going to be an issue of you being too shy about what you're wearing, make sure it's something that you feel comfortable with, no matter what layer you have to be in. And please do wear underwear. It has happened where someone has come and they were not wearing underwear and they were wearing thick jeans. And thick jeans is probably my one arch nemesis. If it's a stretchy jean, it's not a big deal. But when it's very thick, the old school thick jean that has no stretch to it, it's very hard to, that gives a lot of resistance in our palpation. So please do wear underwear, no matter what. Another don't is, please don't get naked like you're going to a massage. It's happened to a few times, actually, where I've asked someone, okay, I'm going to step out, I'm going to go wash my hands, I'll let you get ready. And I guess I wasn't specific enough that when I came back in the room, I always put a blanket sheet, like a thin blanket sheet over the therapy table. It's for hygienic purposes. Between each client, I change it. And I came back in and this person was completely naked underneath the sheet. So we had to have the awkward conversation of, no, please, I'll step back out. Please put at least your underwear back on, and then we'll proceed. And everything went fine after that. It was just a bit of a lack of communication on my part. But it's still a funny story to tell. And I figure if you're wondering that for yourself, because in massage, a lot of people do get naked and go under a blanket. Not the same in osteopathy, because we might have you sitting, standing. We may have you do some movements. So we definitely don't want anything exposed that doesn't need to be. Another don't is, maybe this one's more for me. I'm very sensitive to perfumes, but talking with other colleagues, it is a theme that comes up. Please don't wear heavy perfumes. It's okay to have a little signature scent, but if your perfume is too strong, a lot of us in osteopathy, we're not only becoming sensitive with our touch, but it's almost like all of our senses over time become awakened. And it may sound a little picky or particular, but because all of our senses are a bit more heightened with all the work that we've put into developing our craft, smell also becomes very sensitive. So, a little push spray, no problem. But some people really overdo it. And I would just like to emphasize, for an appointment in osteo, less is more. I'd almost rather you not put any at all, even if you're worried about having a little smell to you, than having too much perfume, and then that starts to give a headache to those who aren't used to your scent. I know perfumes are usually a societal standard, and hey, I still wear some myself, but really more and more I find as I've gone along in heightening my senses, too much perfume really becomes a distraction. I hope I don't offend too many people with that comment. It's just sometimes people go really intense, and it can affect my own sensations in other ways. So it's always appreciated. Another don't is, when you're coming in to a session with an osteopath, usually you're coming in for a specific complaint. Sometimes people are coming and asking for a general checkup. Either or is wonderful. Chances are, even if you don't have a complaint and you're coming to see us, we're going to find things that may be a bit out of alignment and just reset you and optimize your well-being. But one thing that really becomes tough is once we start evaluating and we start doing our interventions to help you get more aligned, sometimes people at the very, very end get a flash and then ask you to do a whole evaluation of a body part. So for example, the other day, a wonderful client of mine, she's super sweet, but she has a tendency to ask at the very end of the session, always. She might come in and tell me her back is hurting, but then she'll start saying, right as I'm wrapping up, oh my God, my wrist is killing me. You have to check my wrist. Please check my wrist. But meanwhile, I was just at the final stage of integrating everything, and now I have to move on to working on her dossier and preparing for my next client. So it's not a problem if you want me to check your wrist, but once we start evaluating and starting to put the links together, I don't necessarily always feel that your wrist is an issue. Sometimes it's really just your wrist is bothering you, and it could be a link into something in your shoulder, in your back. It's possible it was already addressed, and it's possible that it's not also. But to bring in this new request at the very end of an appointment, I don't want to say it's frustrating for the osteopath. It's not that. It's just we're not going to be able to deliver to the extent that you expect when it comes in at the very end and we've already tied a nice bow around something else. It's almost like it can disappoint our clients when we didn't get the fair chance to explain or show you how this could be tied into everything. And also now we're trying to fix something real quick. We're going into that addressing a symptom rather than the cause pattern, which is what we're trying to avoid. We really want to get to the root cause. And we don't have enough time to go and see why your wrist is hurting you at the moment if it's never been brought up until the very last minute. I hope that makes sense. It's definitely something that we can tie into your whole journey. And sometimes what will happen is I will just say, okay, I'm going to look real quick, see what's going on. I might reset a few things with a perfect expectation that it might not be the full resolution of that problem. But I do put a note in my file that I do have to go back and try and tie that in next time. Final point of do's. Please don't check your watch and act like a timer for your session. So what I mean is, say your appointment's from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Having a 1 hour session with an osteopath does not mean you have a 1 hour massage. So when you go to the massage office, or at least this is in my experience, your appointment with your massage therapist starts, say, at noon. They receive you in, you get undressed, you lie on the table, and they go for 1 hour of time, or at least till 1 o'clock or a few minutes till 1. They really have a 1 hour massage routine designed for you. Osteopathy is not the same. Osteopathy means when you go see the osteopath, it means 1 hour of our time to take care of you. And taking care of you includes looking at your file of your past appointments or taking your full history, assessing you, producing the intervention, giving you any exercises, giving you any other recommendations or referrals, and finishing up your file before the hour is done. It's been a few times I've had to have some awkward conversations with clients where I wrap up at, say it's from 12 to 1, and at 12:52, I start telling them that our session is finishing up. I'm about to go into exercises and other recommendations before I step out and let them get dressed and start working on their file, and to then see them off. And it's happened a few times where they look at their watch and they go, hey, you're not done yet. I have you till 1 o'clock. And that's when we have to have an awkward conversation about it's not a 1 hour treatment. It's a 1 hour of my time devoted to you. So I hope this list of do's and don'ts, these little tidbits of what to expect, are helpful, because sometimes we don't have the time to express all of this clearly. We want to devote as much time as possible to your care, but we don't want to spend all this time going back and forth about semantics of how it should be and how it shouldn't be. I'm just here as an insider trying to give you the scoop so that you have a better information when you go to your next appointment. And if after listening to me ramble for all this time about what it's like to go see the osteopath, if you'd actually like to try going to see an osteopath for yourself, and you're curious to see if that's the right place to start in your wellness journey, I highly recommend going to take the quiz I prepared for you. So I'm going to link the quiz in the show notes, and it's called Is Osteopathy Right for You? It helps you explore whether you should go see the osteopath first, the physiotherapist, or if it's better to have a visit with your doctor first to really get the full the full rundown of your health situation, and then the doctor can recommend where you should go from there. I hope this was helpful. Go take the quiz, see if it's a good fit for you. And until then, I will see you on the next episode. Take care.
Thank you for being a part of today's episode of the Holistish podcast. Ready to take your wellness journey further? Visit Holistish, that's holistic with an SH at the end, .com, to access our latest resources and wellness tools designed to support your holistic health journey. For holistic health inspiration and a behind-the-scenes look at integrating traditional wisdom with modern wellness, join our growing community on Instagram at the.holistish. If today's episode resonated with you, subscribe so that you never miss out on our weekly episodes, and leave a quick review to help other wellness seekers find us. Until next time, stay curious, stay balanced, and keep exploring what works best for your unique body and mind. Your health journey matters, and I'll meet you right back here next week.